What's up, world? It's me again. I'm in my car, and the title of this one is gonna be called Maintenance. I shot my first video in a car, and the video titled The Price is Right, where I show a car that I was test driving. But yeah, I'm back in the whip, and the title of this one is called Maintenance. And I spoke briefly on the maintenance costs and repairs on my Jeep. It costs $8,000, and I'm not paying it. I was making the contribution every month, and it took them a year just to do that for me, just to work out some type of payment arrangement. So I'm like, man, forget that. I let it go. Wasn't worth the money all the time. I could be using that money to invest in other things. Like I said, I moved into a new apartment, new area, so why not invest in that? Invest in myself, invest in my path, invest in my career. That's where I'm at with it. So yeah, I let that car go. It was the best thing for me to do to move forward in my life. So it is what it is. Fuck that Jeep. There's other things out there that's bigger and better. And what's more important is that I have a car to get from point A to point B. It doesn't matter if it's a bucket, it don't matter what it is, but I'm in a nice car, so I'm happy either way it goes. But yeah, the title of this one is called Maintenance. And it's deeper than just, physical things as far as cars and stuff like that. But since we're speaking about cars, I'm gonna stay on topic. And the used car that I was using until I got the car that I have now, it actually caught on fire. I don't know what's up. I feel like that's the theme of my life. I'm always able to persevere and go through stuff, but a lot of shit in my life just catches flames. So yeah, I was on my way to work, and the car had issues with the transmission. I noticed it. I had the car for about 6-7 months. It was an older vehicle. It was a 2008 Chrysler Sebring. I was just using that until I got my Jeep back. So yeah, I'm riding, and I noticed a little, kinks in it. When I first got it, it wasn't as bad. I even, spent money on fixing the oil pan and, the gas line and all that stuff, fuel. So, I made the repairs, I paid for it, and it still kept acting up. Now it's the transmission. So I'm riding that motherfucker all the way to work. It's about a 30-minute drive. My car that I was driving is not really a 30-minute drive kind of car, but I had to make my money, so that's what I did. I was riding, and a couple weeks prior I noticed the slips. I'll hit the gas and then it'll slip, and then the transmission, it will take a while for it to get to peak. So for me to get to 60 miles per hour, it will put me all the way in the 4th and 5th gear. When I first got the car, I wasn't doing that, and then it was a noise that it was making. It was like and that let me know right there, okay, I know it's on its last leg. But I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna roll with the punches, even though it wasn't safe. I mean, what other choice I got? So I'm riding the motherfucking car, and I'm like, hopefully it'll last me a couple more months. Hopefully I could thug it through until I get my Jeep back. But nope, I was on my way to work. It was about 7 in the morning, and I was literally one exit away from my job, and it started slipping, and I noticed that smoke started coming from the hood. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I'm like, nah, let me pull this motherfucker over. So I pull it over at a fork in the road on the highway, and it just caught up in flames. And there was this woman, you know, she seen me, and I still had to be at work. And it's crazy because, you know, I'm in the security field, and it was a patrol where it was a construction site I was working at, and usually I would just sit in my car, you know, and then get on foot and make sure the area is safe. But that day I had to basically post up outside for 12 hours, you know, and it was an apartment complex that was in development. It wasn't finished yet, so I was able to go inside the building, but I was just sitting there, you know, I couldn't really, like, you know, get my vibe on. I really had to, like, kind of like be in a closed off mindset. Like, I was really stuck, you know, in the building, like, and I couldn't, you know, go on the whip and, like, okay, let me chill out, you know, listen to music, or, you know, do whatever, you know. I had to just sit in a building that wasn't even developed. Like, I couldn't charge my phone, really. Like, I was just sitting there. That shit was crazy, yo. So I think that was a sign from the universe anyways, that I needed to let it go. I needed to let that car go, you know. I needed to let that job go, because I had a job that was already giving me full-time hours. But the only reason I stayed is because I was being greedy. So, you know, I was being greedy and I wanted the money. So things happen in life for a reason. We can't have everything that we want. And sometimes in order to get the things that you want, you have to let go of certain things. So yeah, it caught on flames, and luckily I'm alive. You know, that's the number one thing. I made it, because I could have died, but I didn't. Luckily, I caught wind of what was going on. I noticed something different than usual. I'm like, nah, let me pull the car over. And there was a woman that pulled over to the side of the road, and she aided me, you know, she assisted me and took me to work. But that car was just sitting on the freeway, burning in flames. I'm pretty sure, you know, fire department got involved at some point. Somebody seen it. Hey, you know, there's a car burning on the side of the road, and they took care of it, picked up that trash, you know. So that's what happened, you know. So as far as cars, you know, that wasn't my first encounter with a car that, you know, caught on flames. My sister's father, when my mother was with him, we was in New York. I don't know where we were going, but I was about 5, 6 years old, and his car started messing up, and his car caught on flames. So that's my second situation, you know. And then if you watch my previous video called Soundview, our house caught on fire, you know, in the Bronx. So that shit is crazy. You know, it's like I just, you know, go through situations where I'm used to flames. I wouldn't say I'm immune, but it's like I almost expect it now. I expect at some point something's gonna catch on fire. Hopefully, you know, my fucking YouTube catch on fire. That's how I feel. You know, I've been going through a lot of, you know, mishaps in life. And, you know, that's a part of the journey, you know, but I just feel like, you know, my story is a little bit convoluted, a little bit more, you know, complicated than others. Not saying that my story is worse than others. We all have something to share. It just feels like the things that happen in my life is extreme. So now I just expect the extreme at all times. But it made me stronger, you know, it made me a warrior. So I'm just grateful for the, you know, experience in life. And yeah, but you know, that's it on the car aspect. You know, like I said, the title of this one is called Maintenance. So let's talk about the body, you know. Let's talk about the flesh. Maintenance is important. I was working 2 jobs. So working 2 jobs, how can you really maintain your body? How can you maintain your mind? How can you maintain your spirit? I was doing it, but I was lacking. I became so fixated on the cash, on the bread, and hey, you see what I'm saying? You slip up a little bit. Your health isn't where it needs to be. I can't work out as much as I would like to because I didn't have the free time. I can't read as much as I would like to. You see what I'm saying? And certain things like, me stepping outdoors and going on walks and being in nature, there's certain things I'm missing out on now. Being in society, being socializing with people, and getting to know people, like that became absent because now I'm just punch in, punch out. That's all it was now. So now I'm able to really take care of myself, and a better way as far as my health, making sure I'm eating the right foods. I mean, I was doing that before, but I wasn't really like able to sit there and process everything that I'm doing, because when I get home from work, I'm like, okay, boom, let me prepare my food for the next day. And that should take about 30 minutes to an hour. And then you got to get up in the morning. I got to make sure I'm cleaning all this stuff and make sure my house is clean, make sure, everything is set up. But now that I have more time, I can really sit there and be like, all right, make sure my house is where it needs to be as far as sanitary. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't a filthy person. I wasn't no greaseball, but when you a man and you're not home all the time and you just living on your own, and you're not gonna have time to do everything. When you have a woman, she can kind of like, maintain the household while you're away getting that check. But man, I gotta do everything on my own. So yeah, man, now I got more time to work around things, so maintaining your body, I'm real heavy on that. I'm able to eat properly. I'm able to slow down a little bit more, breathe a little bit. And yeah, so I'm able to do that. And what's another thing to maintain? Rent. You see what I'm saying? So now, and this is a message to, any young man, or not just a young man, if there's women out there watching me that can relate, rent is a motherfucker, I took on a challenge by, going from a 1-bedroom to a 2, and I didn't have to, but the only reason I did that is so I can create a studio out of my 2nd bedroom, and it's pretty much done. Like, it's all set up. I just need to add the aesthetic and make it a little bit more flavorful and colorful and everything. And y'all gonna get a video of that too, but that's gonna take time, just like everything else. So yeah, it's real. Paying rent is real. I was paying, something lighter in my last apartment, but now this one is a little more hefty. And now that I let go of the 2nd job and I'm working full time, so now I just got to make sure I'm real responsible with my money and make sure I have that back end for the rent. So, it's not impossible. I'm doing it. But yeah, that's a heavy load. It is. On top of paying monthly for a new car that I got. You see, so it's like, damn. After you get a win, you get, a little, setback. Every time, you move up an inch, you get set back a couple yards. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, damn. But what I'm learning is this. I'm learning that it's about being consistent. Once you have a system in place and you understand yourself, you understand the money that you're making, and you understand who you are and what you do and what you need to do, then you could be a little bit more mindful of how to go about things. So, and you know, I had a little minor setback because I was paying my Jeep still, as far as making the monthly payments for a car that I'm not driving, which was idiotic. I was doing it because I felt like I could get myself out of that predicament. Like, nah, I could get my car back, but that was my ego. Yeah, I could get my car back, but that's not the point. Why put myself through the turmoil? Why put myself through unnecessary stress and headache and, you know, agony? Why would I do that? You know, when I could have just let it go, you know, and it was people in my ear saying, hey, you don't need it, you know. As far as family, you see what I'm saying? But then I had people that, you know, I was speaking to, and, you know, they ain't tell me, oh, let the car go. See, like, you see what I'm saying? So, but once again, there's people out there, you know, that's not gonna tell you the right thing or give you the right advice. But luckily I had somebody that gave me the right advice, and I knew right, but I was being greedy. So, you know, I learned from that. I'm in a good situation. I have somewhere to lay my head. I got food in the house. You know, I got money coming in, and that's all that matters. You know, you gotta be appreciative of the small things. So, yeah, you know. But yeah, maintaining an apartment and paying rent and all that, and utilities, and yeah, you know, sometimes, you know, life knocks you down. You just gotta get back up. And I was fucked up. I was fucked up a little bit, not broke, you know, but because I decided to pay Capital One, pay the loan on a car that I'm not even driving. See what I'm saying? Like, that shit. And then I let go of the job because I didn't need it anymore. So it's like, damn, that kind of put me in a hole, and I wasn't able to pay rent on time. So I had to save my checks, pay my rent, you know. Luckily, they didn't hit me with the late fee. I asked them to waive it. You see what I'm saying? They did that. So that was cool, you know. They didn't have to do that, but they did that. So I felt good, you know. I felt good, you know, that I was able to, you know, kind of like finesse that situation. But now rent's coming up. You see what I'm saying? It's the 31st. See what I'm saying? So now I gotta make sure I have rent again, and I'm gonna have it. But guess what? Now I can't pay my car note. You know, I missed my car payment, but it's okay. You know, it's okay to miss a car payment here and there. So I missed 1 month, and you know, I'm a perfectionist, so I don't want to miss shit. I want to stay on top of my game. So, you know, I have to learn how to be easier on myself, and it happens to everybody. So at least I have somewhere to park my vehicle. I'm not parking it on the street, so the tow company can't just come in and just debo my shit. They can't come in an apartment complex and private parking and just take my shit. It's in a garage, so you can't take my shit. So I have time to spare, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna, you know, OD and, you know, be like 3-4 months and miss car payments. I'm not gonna do that, you know. So when I get paid, you know, after I pay rent, I'm like, all right, yo, I'm gonna throw them a little change, see what I got. They might not get the whole payment, but they might get a little something. Hey, yo, get off my back. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying. You see what I'm saying? Then I still got other bills I need to take care of. And, you know, now that I'm not working 2 jobs, I'm working 1. I'm still working full time. Now I got more free time to do what I want. But within that free time, now I gotta find little side hustles, and I'm not selling drugs. You see what I'm saying? Back in my day, that's how I was getting money, you know. So the government took that employment from a lot of people. You see, they got all these dispensaries everywhere. You can't just be out here, you know, trapping. It's not happening. You know, I'm not trying to go to jail for that, you know. So it is what it is. You know, they fucked the game up with that shit. So now I gotta find legal ways to make money. But when I first came to the West Coast and I didn't have a JO yet, you know, I was out here, and I was doing DoorDash, and I became like a platinum member. So I'm blue. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm like the top tier DoorDasher. I did like 300 something orders and all that in a span of like 2 months or something like that. I was just gunning. I wasn't playing. You see what I'm saying? So now that's a fallback option for me. If I want that extra cash, I'm actually about to do that now. You see what I'm saying? You know, do a little DoorDash. I don't mind touring the world, seeing people's houses, seeing big old houses in nice neighborhoods, and, you know, getting tipped nice. Yeah, so I'm gonna get that cash. So That's what I'm gonna do with my free time. And then, you know, if I'm able to pick up a shift here and there, you know, from the job that I work at, then I get that. You know, I pick that up, you know. So right now I'm just on the grizzly. I'm on the grind and I'm not playing. So, you know, and I gotta pick up the slack. You know, if I want to maintain and keep these things. But at the same time, I'm not afraid to let go. You know, I'm not afraid to let go. And I think that's the lesson in all of this. You know, practicing how to maintain your lifestyle and then also maintaining who you are as an individual and maintaining your mind and your body and making sure you take care of yourself, you know, eating the right foods, cleaning, you know, your household, make sure don't nothing build up, you see what I'm saying? And also cleaning yourself, you see what I'm saying? And all that, just staying clean, you know? That's the number one thing, you know, that I would say, you know, you guys should subtract from this video and, you know, add it to you. So, you know, and I believe that, you know, in order to grow as a person, you have to let go. You know, you have to, you know, sacrifice and let go of things that don't serve you anymore. And, you know, being in a whole nother place on your own, that shit turns you into a monster, man. I thought I was a monster already coming from where I come from, you know, being in the Bronx, had to figure it out. And now, you know, as an adult, it's like I really got to figure it out. And I'm not playing. It's like I don't have a choice. It's like, I don't know. I wonder if other people feel like this. See, like when I get up, it's just like, it's instincts. You see what I'm saying? It's automatic. It's like, because you know it's only you. When you know it's only you, you just got to go out there and get it. And then it's like, then you got to get it by any means, you know? You know, and when I say that, I'm not saying take it from the next man. I'm just saying, you know, you got to do what you got to do, you know, in a positive way, you know, in a positive way. But I understand some people out there that got to do what they got to do in a negative way, you know, because it's hard out here, man. Inflation, the cost of living, prices, food, like walking in the supermarket. That's another thing I want to speak on. You know, it's just me in the crib. So why, like, if I walk in a store, a supermarket with a basket, you see what I'm saying? If I walk with a basket of food and I'm leaving and going to the register, why is it $100? And it's not like, you know, I'm getting a whole bunch of meat and produce. I'm grabbing the bare minimum, you know, and that shit lasted me a couple days. So it's like when you go to the supermarket, you gotta spend about almost $200 just to, you know, last. You see what I'm saying? But I've been real minimal as far as just grabbing the things that I know that I need, like grabbing my fruit, you know, grabbing certain meat to go with my meals, you know, shit like that. You see what I'm saying? My juices, my drinks, you see what I'm saying? Little snacks here and there, you know, to get me, you know, through my day at work. So it's like, damn, but this shit just flying, like it's flying. Time is flying, money's flying, you see. So it's like, you know, you just have to be a little bit more conservative. I feel like everybody should be more conservative. So there's no point buying a whole bunch of bullshit that you know you don't need. See, me, I just grab what I need. I ain't here to try to impress nobody. Yeah, you know, I bought me some clothes because it's been years since I bought me some clothes. But see, we need clothes. You do need clothes. But don't spend no fucking $1,000 on no clothes. Don't spend no motherfucking $1,000 on no sneakers. Man, when I was in the game and I was, you know, serving motherfuckers on the East Coast, man, I was spending, you know, $1,000 something on some sneakers. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like I spent money on shit that I didn't need. And if I was more conservative back then, you know, I would have a lot more money now, you know. But I'm still good with money, you know. And it was an experience, you know. I never had that much money at once, so I felt like I did the right thing at that time. And it wasn't just clothes I was buying. I was spending money on experiences, you know, going across the world. So it was worth it. But now that, you know, I'm a little bit more wiser, yeah, man, I'm penny pinching like a motherfucker, like Eugene Krabs. You see what I'm saying? I'm penny pinching, man. Everything costs. Everything. Stepping outside, you take a breath, nigga, that's 50 cents, man. That's what it is. Understand that. Every time you decide you want to step out, you're going to spend something. Even if it's not money, it's your time. Time is money. So, you know, but at the same time, you know, enjoy your experiences, but don't splurge. yeah, don't splurge. You know, if you got a couple $100 you want to spend, all right, cool, but don't splurge. Don't spend no thousands on nothing. You know, piece by piece. That's how I'm building my castle. That's how I'm building my empire, piece by piece. You know, it'll be a moment where I could spend a lot more. You know, but I'm really grateful for everything that I need. So that's it. You know. Yeah, but you know, maintenance. That's the title of this one, and I hope that everybody's maintaining, because man, if you ain't right, nothing else is gonna be right. So hopefully, you know, everybody's right and everybody's okay, because man, we going through a crisis, and I feel that shit. And I'm doing, you know, all right. You see what I'm saying? I know I'm doing all right. I'm doing decent, and there's always somebody that's doing worse than you, and then there's people doing better than me, and they going through crisis. You know, you got people who's, you know, in the upper class and they going through shit, and then you got people in the low middle class and they going through stuff, and then you got people who are poor, you know, and they going through shit. They going through worse. So, you know, I just hope that everybody that, you know, whatever situation you in, I just hope that you know, keep your mental right. You know, I'm doing my best. You know, I slip here and there, yeah, because I'm not perfect. You know, I could put up the facade and play it cool, yeah. When I'm walking around, hey, yeah, you know, I'm playing it cool. But motherfucker, I feel like, man, when I look in the mirror and I look at myself, I'm like, yeah, you know, I slipped. You know, we're not perfect. You know, I fucked up, you know, in a lot of ways. You know, we all do. We all fuck up. We all slip, you know. You know, I'm not going to say, you know, I'm perfect. You know, I've done things, and, you know, in the process of struggling, you might do something stupid, you know, but during these times, it's actually going to make you stronger. It'll teach you not to make the same mistake, you know. Here's a lesson that I learned. A smart person learns from their own mistakes. A wise person learns from others. So, you know, with that information, you can do what you want to do with it, you know. So I would say the biggest takeaway from this video is to piece by piece. You see what I'm saying? Piece it together. With anything that you want to do as far as goals in life, you know, as far as dealing with new people and relationships, you know, don't give everybody the whole thing, man. Hey, piece by piece, clip it, you know. You see what I'm saying? That's what it is, you know. And also, I know it's hard out here, you know, as far as, you know, to keep your happiness. I'm going through that right now. I'm fighting to maintain my happiness. But you know what helps me is, you know, just looking in the mirror. Like right now, I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking in the mirror, you know, I'm looking at myself. I just like to smile, you see? You know, smiling helps, you know? Smiling is a medicine, you see what I'm saying? I'd rather smile than frown, you know? And then you can't let people know how you feeling. You can't let people read you, oh, he going through, nah. When you see me, you don't know what the fuck going on. You see what I'm saying? So, you won't know what's going on unless I'm telling you. So, yeah. You know, and I feel like that should be like a motto for everyone. Yeah, but we at 28 minutes right now, man. I could do this, man. You know, I could really just talk on camera, but you know, I'm gonna save this though, and you know, it'll be a little minute before you get another long video from me, because you know we at the end of our rope with the story mode, you know, and it'll just be new content, you know. But you know, we almost through with it, yeah. So I hope that you guys have a good day. Enjoy your summer, because look, that's another thing. The summer's flying, it's almost over. So I hope that you guys enjoy your summer. I hope that you guys enjoy your day and do things that make you happy, because that's all we got. Peace.